what's up? I'm Gazbot, and this is the horror production update report number, I don't know, 40? That's Kevin. He's gone. Well, it's, what is it, Monday, and wow, it is bright. I'm not tired squinty, it is bright squinty, and I left my sunglasses in the car. My eyes are adjusting a bit, but man, it is bright. It's funny, it's been kind of overcast the entire weekend, the whole kamikaze, well, LA Convention Con, he changed the name, whatever. And now that it's all done and I got to sleep in and we're just gonna go meet some friends for lunch, the sun has come out. It's a brand new day. Yeah, so I'm going to get coffee because we ran out of coffee. So there's still trouble even in this brand new day. Hey there, friends. We're about to go to the Guillermo del Toro exhibit. You can't take video, but there are pictures. So get ready for a slideshow of amazing while I talk over it and basically just tell you what you're looking at.
And away we go. This is the Guillermo del Toro exhibit at the museum. Now, this is going to be a big slideshow. That's from Pan's Labyrinth, Edward Gorey. Now, I'm going to have a hard time explaining everything you're looking at, so really this is a visual one. For those of you like me that like to watch these while you're working, it's probably not that good. This is mainly for people who aren't going to be able to make it to the exhibit but would like to see it, and here is a slideshow of pictures. As I said, I couldn't take video, but there was a plethora of different things, everything from original artwork and concept from the movies that Guillermo had worked on to art from his own personal collection that had nothing to do with any of his projects other than it inspired him. Here you can see some Mike Mignola drawings from the Blade movie he worked on. There was a lot of Mike Mignola art, actually, both from concept work from movies and Hellboy stuff and things like that. And it's interesting that a lot of it had like color, just a splash of red or something. There were props. I think that was from Dracula. I know he had some stuff from Dracula, the Bram Stoker's Dracula movie that came out a while back. Like that helmet there, I believe, is from it, which are props from his own personal collection. This was a weird little man that would move in the back, but again, you couldn't take videos, so I couldn't show you. But it was great. I mean, there was something for everyone, unless you hate all sorts of, anything remotely horror gothic art, then you would not enjoy this. These were like full-life mannequins of, for lack of a better term, freaks, but like from the movie Freaks. I have a kind of a fear of I can't think of. They're called pinheads in the Freak movie. That's probably derogatory. I don't know the actual term. And then, again, here's more art, just concept drawings. I don't know if this is from Hellboy or what. Even when I was there, everything wasn't 100% labeled. They'd have like little autographs on some of them, and one or two had plaques so you could read, but a lot of it was just like, here's a bunch of art, which I kind of appreciated because I'm bad at going to museums. I enjoy them sometimes, but I'm really bad at like, oh, let me figure out the historical significance and all this. Is like, is it cool? Let me look at it. That's kind of how I approach most art. And this was good because I liked most of it, but also, as I said, there was a great diversity. Here's some maquettes from Pacific Rim, which the funny thing is, well, there's a monster. They don't quite look as accurate as the figures I have, so I don't know if they were early production or late or what, or just concept stuff, because obviously most of that was done CGI. But even here, like, I guess that's Gypsy Danger, but the coloring looks weird. Like, he's more of a blue, and here it's white, so I'm not sure what they were used for in the movie, if anything, or if it was just pre-production. But it was all laid out really nicely, too. Like, you can see there, it's like a cabinet as though you went into some mad scientists, Dr. Cagliari. And they had full mannequins, but they look like Madame Tussauds kind of wax mannequins. And here you can see Boris Karloff as Frankenstein and the Frankenstein's monster, rather. A lot of comic pages, but all, like, somewhat related to horror for the most part, anyway. It was great. We were there for maybe 2 hours, and I think that was enough time to see everything, but I could have spent more time. And this is what I was talking about, the layout. Like, there was a lot of Edgar Allan Poe stuff, and there were the walls had, like, fake slats, like as though it was an old building that you could see through to the other one. There's a lot of Bernie Wrightson artwork, too. That was pretty awesome to see up close, and just... Yeah, he's known for his line work, which is very good, obviously, but also his light and dark. There's one coming up where he has light streaming through some slats. Yeah, right here. And there was, like, nothing drawn in that white. Like, to make the light, he just, like, omitted it. He either didn't draw it or used white out on top of it. And that's just one of those things, like, I've never think to do that. I would use less shading or put a highlight, certainly, but just, oh, it's so bright, I won't draw anything there. It's just a cool, the things that, yeah, I could have seen that in a book and realized it, but I just have, Kevin Cross had talked about this, and I think Scott Serklin. This was one of the coolest things there. Whereas Boris Karloff as Frankenstein's monster, but like in between takes having a cup of coffee was pretty nice. There was a lot of this art. Again, a lot of it I'm not sure where it was from. I don't even know the artist. This is old Disney stuff. This is like concept and production work for like Sleeping Beauty and stuff like that. And these were awesome. And it kind of makes you think like how different the movie could have been had it gone as dark as some of the. I mean, it has this a little bit, obviously, but all of it looked much darker than the actual movie. Here's more pages. A lot of like independent black and white kind of stuff, which the kind of stuff that appeals to me, and the kind of stuff I remember like really blowing my mind when I was a kid, when I had been reading, Star Wars and Spider-Man, and then picked up, an Anything Goes or some weird vampire comic, and not even that I was that into horror, but just the alternative side of it, these sort of independent and or self-published stuff. There's a lot of, like portraits of sea monkey people. I think that's Krampus. There was like time machine dioramas. There was a lot of this sort of thing, like the mermaid that you'd see at like a sideshow at Coney Island, which is obviously just people stitch stuff together. This, I think, there's the time machines. But previous to that, I think was a replica of Pirates of the Caribbean, the end of that ride. And so, like I said, there's that's from Crimson Peak. So, like I said, there's just a great mix of things from his collection, things that inspired him, things that maybe have nothing to do with his work, but he just liked, props from other movies, props from his movies, concept art. It's just a lot of fun, and I would definitely give yourself an hour or two if you're going to go by there, and definitely bring a camera. I tried to take pictures of almost everything, and I failed. I definitely failed. This was a weird puppet. And now I'm a weird puppet. As you can see, I have the same face as him. This was not Edward Gorey. Edgar Allan Poe, that's right, and more movie frames and stills and things like that. And it was, like I said, it was just a lot of fantasticness to enjoy. They had a book open to a page. I don't know the significance of that. That was Man, Myth, and Magic, which was a book I remember seeing commercials for Time Life, get witches and warlocks when I was a child. And I imagine Mr. Del Toro, Guillermo, also saw and or got that. I would not be surprised to find out that that was from his childhood collection. I'm not sure what that was from, but it was this cool, like, giant wooden hand that was articulated, like, not giant like a person, giant like as though it belonged to a giant. I saw some art for it elsewhere. It's probably something dumb like, oh, well, that was from Hellboy, and I just didn't notice it. That's from Fantasia. Previously, there's a lot of Hellboy props and things like that, of course. Previously, more Fantasia, the Devil. There was a movie called, I believe, Kronos that he had worked on that there was some artwork for as well. This, I think, was from Aliens, the planet that they were on, the second movie. And that's a man who reads a book. I forget. I don't remember who that was. He was somebody significant. A mannequin, obviously. This is like a little cool king box. And again, I would say about 50% of this stuff I knew it. 25%, that's a Mobius drawing. About 25%, I didn't really know it well, but I kind of knew who the artist was, or I got the reference. And 25%, I had no idea what it was. Probably if you watch Scott Serkland and or Kevin Cross also went to this exhibit, they might have better explanations than I, because as I said, I basically was just like, look at all this cool stuff. And so the way you're experiencing now is kind of how I experienced it. Like, hey, big Frankenstein head. To give you an idea of scale, it was on the wall. It was gigantic. This was sort of a holographic boy thing where like a skeleton would show up and be projected over it. And it was like 10 feet back in a room. Again, difficult to capture or describe with just still imagery. Here's some original artwork from Hellboy, the inked pages. And what struck me about a lot of the Mike Mignola work, the Hellboy stuff, is how clean it was. Now, I don't mean cleanliness of lines or boldness of strokes or that sort of thing, although that is obviously true. But there wasn't a lot of whiteout. There wasn't a lot of correcting. Now, I don't know if that means his pencils are just so ungodly super tight that when he goes to inks, there's no room for mistakes. But when I do original art, there's always, inked art, that is, there's always a little bit of whiteout. There's always like one or two things I have to change, if I'm lucky. I mean, if I'm not, then there's a lot. So the fact that it was so tight and perfect really impressed me. So I don't know if that is a level of skill or, again, a level of preparedness and pre-production, but either way, it was good. And there, again, more props and things. That was another little puppet. I think that might be from Hellboy and the Golden Army. I'm not sure. Here we get into That's a Metal Luna Mutant. I believe it was the original art from a cover of Famous Monsters, although I could be mistaken about that. And this was one of my favorite things. It was just like a shadow box with a bunch of random monster magazines and comics that I don't think were particularly valuable or significant, and I imagine they were just from his personal collection. There's a mock-up Hellboy comic, which is cool. And there's Guillermo and Mike Mignola and Hellboy. And more Hellboy, Mike Mignola sketches. I imagine these are for the movie for the most part, or one of the two movies. This obviously was the first one because there's the corpse and stuff. And this, oh my gosh, I'm going to get slaughtered by Scott and Kevin. I think this was Ray Harryhausen. Yeah, I'm 99%. I guess I want to say Stan Winston. No, it was Ray Harryhausen because then there's the little skeletons and all that. But that was a life-size mannequin that had the little skeletons climbing all over him. That dinosaur really impressed me. That was from oh my gosh, what was the name? It was a famous animated short that was like on the vaudeville scene back in the day, and it was done by Winsor McKay, who did Little Nemo's Slumberland, and was like very famous later on. Well, at that time, but then later he became more famous for his cartoon strips. This was from some comic called Arabian Nights by Richard Corbin. I'd never heard of it, but I really liked the art. It used Duo Shade to get that old-fashioned gray tones, and there's just a lot of cool old-fashioned fantasy sci-fi art from like I guess 70s, 80s, which again is sort of a little bit before my time as far as what I read as a kid, but the aesthetic I really enjoy, and it makes me feel like this feels like independent comics. When I think of independent comics, this is the kind of stuff that emotionally comes forth in my mind as an image. And so yeah, there were pages and pages of different stuff from these artists, and this was just there's a couple Alfred Hitchcock like caricatures of different sorts. This I did not know what it was. It's Silver something. Oh, here you go, Silver Angel, and I thought it was an old like movie or something. And they actually had some art, Crumb original art, which was cool, but it was from some show that I don't watch that had a fake show in it that was like a wrestler that fought vampires and stuff, and they had a clip of it running to look like an old movie or an old show, and I was like, man, I gotta get into this, but then I found out it's modern, made to look old, but it fooled me for a second, so that's cool. This was right at the front, and this was the creature from Pan's Labyrinth, and there's Pan himself, I suppose. Now nearby, like literally, this is the outside of the museum hotel. Right next door is the Brea Tar Pits, which we weren't going to, wasn't part of the plan, but like this is outside the door of the museum. Boom, there's the Discover the Ice Age, LA.
I would swim in it. This is the Brea Tar Pits. Full of farts. It's the best thing about it is farts. Diarrhea.
Honestly, they were kind of boring. This is just the most interesting thing is that little setup of the fake mammoths. It doesn't look like tar. It looks like dirty, oily water. Next to it, though, there is some sort of museum setups. Well, I mean, museum is the wrong word, but you could go look, and this is where they're excavating to find more fossils and dinosaurs. Most of them weren't that great, but this one actually had what looked more like a sludgy tar, and more what I thought the tar pits would have. This was just some graffiti on the way home of Mazinger Z, which I thought was pretty cool. And that, my friends, was the Guillermo del Toro exhibit. Probably still said it wrong. But anyway, it was great and was worth checking out. I can't speak to the museum as a whole, although it's an art museum, so how bad could it be? The La Brea Tar Pits next door were disappointing. I mean, if you're already there, it's worth taking a walk. We maybe spent 20 minutes, half hour looking at all the tar pits, but mainly because there was walking around that you had to do. It doesn't look like it does in movies. I was picturing like Last Action Hero when they fall and there's the tar. It just looks like dirty water. It's a little disappointing, and you don't really see a lot of other stuff. I think there was a building we didn't go in that maybe had some fossils on display, but we weren't looking to go to another museum. We just wanted to see the pits. Disappointing. That's fine because the Guillermo exhibit was so awesome, and if it's still up and you have a chance, check it out, but I don't think it is much longer, so watch my video, watch other people's videos. That's how you can enjoy it, unless it comes to a town near you, in which case, do it that way. I'm repeating myself now. I'm gonna go. Tune in next time when I go to Disneyland, Disney World, the one that's in California.